They call it technical debt, but I call it the foundation. For 3 years, I was the lead architect at Nexus Logistics, the unsung hero behind a digital empire. I built their cloud infrastructure from the ground up. A custom fortress that flawlessly processed $10 million in freight transactions every single day. I wrote the code, I crimped the network cables, and I personally managed the complex web of encryption keys. It was invisible work, the kind that only gets noticed when something goes wrong. And for 3 years, nothing ever did. Then came Marcus. He strolled in as the new CTO, a man who looked like he stepped out of a magazine but didn't know the difference between a server rack and a coat rack. Within his first week, he was presenting my system architecture diagrams in board meetings as his own brilliant ideas. He'd publicly question my methods in team huddles, calling my carefully crafted security protocols bloated legacy junk. He had a way of making you feel small, of making your expertise seem like an obstacle to his vision of disruption. He was a master of corporate politics, but a complete amateur when it came to technology. The final blow landed on a Friday afternoon. Marcus called me into his office. He was practicing his golf swing with a fancy putter, trying to project this image of a Wall Street shark. He didn't just fire me, he made it a point to insult me. He said my 6-figure salary was a complete waste, and that he was replacing me with his nephew, Brayden, a kid who had just finished a 2-week online coding bootcamp. Marcus actually called Brayden a disruptor, and referred to me, the guy who built the entire system, as a legacy asset that needed to be cleared out. Even then, I tried to be the professional. I had prepared for this. I pulled out a thick binder, clearly labeled Critical System Operations and Transition Guide. Inside were the key rotation protocols, the literal heart of the system's security. I started to explain, Marcus, this is extremely important. The master admin key requires a manual renewal every 48 hours. If it's not done, the system will assume there's a security breach and initiate a lockdown to protect the company's data. He wasn't listening. He just scoffed, snatched the binder from my hands, and tossed it into the recycling bin without even opening it. It's just a computer, Alex, he said with a smirk. Brayden's a smart kid. He can figure it out. Now get out. I collected my things and walked out. On my way to the exit, I glanced into the server room. There was Brayden, the so-called disruptor, slouched in a chair, headphones on, playing a game on his phone. All around him, the server racks were humming, with a few status lights already blinking yellow. An early warning he completely ignored. I didn't say a word. I just walked out the door, turned off my work phone, and decided to go completely off-grid for the weekend. It was time for a much-needed break. But back at the office, the system I had built was working exactly as designed. It wasn't malicious. It was just following the rules. That verification timer I warned Marcus about was ticking down. 47 hours and 59 minutes passed. Then, precisely at the 48-hour mark, the system asked for the admin key renewal. And when it received no response, it did exactly what it was programmed to do. It assumed a hostile takeover was in progress. The server room, which was blinking yellow when I left, was now a Christmas tree of flashing red lights. Brayden, finally looking up from his game, started to panic. He called his uncle. Now, if Marcus had even a shred of technical sense, or if he just pulled that binder out of the recycling, he would have known what to do. The manual had a step-by-step guide for this exact scenario. But Marcus, in his infinite arrogance, didn't read manuals. He ordered the one thing you never do to a secure, encrypted system, a hard reset. He thought he could just turn it off and on again, like a faulty Wi-Fi router. That was the fatal mistake. In a high-security environment like the one I built, a hard reset without the proper authorization key is interpreted as the ultimate brute force attack. The system's final defense mechanism kicked in. The moment Brayden typed the command and hit enter, the system instantly triggered a cryptographic lockdown, encrypting every single file, every database, every transaction record. It wasn't deleting the data. It was protecting it from the intruders, who in this case were the company's own CTO and his nephew. Monday morning was pure chaos. The warehouse, usually a hive of activity, was dead silent. Trucks were lined up for miles outside the gates, unable to load or unload. Phones were ringing off the hook with angry clients. The company wasn't just losing money. It was hemorrhaging it, millions of dollars every hour. Finally, late that morning, I decided to turn my personal phone back on. It immediately blew up with a flood of missed calls and frantic texts from Marcus. I called him back. He started the conversation by shouting, threatening me with lawsuits, accusing me of sabotage and corporate espionage. I let him vent. When he finally paused to breathe, I calmly replied. I reminded him of the project proposal from the previous year, the one he signed off on himself, which explicitly authorized the automated security lockdown features. I have the email, Marcus. I said, you didn't read the binder I gave you, and you clearly didn't read your own emails. The system is just doing exactly what you told it to do, protecting the company's data from unauthorized users. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. You could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he realized this wasn't my fault. It was his. His tone shifted instantly from threats to pathetic desperation. Alex, please, he begged. You have to come back, we need you, I politely declined. He offered me a huge bonus to come back on staff. Again, I declined. Then I told him, Marcus, I'm no longer an employee. I am, however, available as an external security consultant. And due to the emergency nature of this request and the fact that you threw the recovery manual in the trash, my rate for a rush recovery service is $100,000. Upfront. Wire transfer only. He sputtered, that's extortion, that's not fair. I simply replied, it's not about fairness, Marcus. It's about supply and demand. You have a $10 million a day problem, and I am the only person in the world with the supply to fix it. Of course, Marcus tried to spin the story to the board, painting himself as the hero who resolved the crisis. But he couldn't hide the incident report. And he definitely couldn't hide the $100,000 invoice with my name on it. The board of directors saw everything, the negligence, the incompetence, the sheer arrogance. He was fired for gross negligence by the end of the week. They actually called me and offered me his job as CTO with a significant raise. But I turned it down. I learned a valuable lesson. I prefer being a consultant. The pay is better, the hours are my own, and best of all, I never have to work for people who think the instruction manual belongs in the trash. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to follow for more stories.